Ladies and gentlemen, a new version of Minecraft has been released. This is version 1.2.3 of the Bedrock edition. That is the edition that is simply called Minecraft. It used to be called Pocket Edition or Windows 10 edition, and it runs on Pocket devices, on Windows 10 obviously, and on Xbox One. It's a little bit confusing, but if you don't know what edition you're running and your title screen simply says Minecraft, then this is the version that we're talking about. We have a whole lot of bug fixes in this one, and my name is SlySlime. I'm here to take you on a tour through all of the changes. Let's start with gameplay fixes. There's a fix that lots of people have been asking about for a while now. Torches and other light sources gave off very little light when you had smooth lighting enabled. That is fixed in this version. Sensitivity of placing blocks has been decreased. That should fix the issues where you got multiple blocks placed when you just pressed once before. If you're controlling the game with a controller in the creative inventory, you will now be able to press the A button to get one item in the inventory, not a full stack. And if you press the Y button, you would get a full stack, and X will clear the hotbar if you're in creative mode. So there's some changes to the controller input for the creative inventory. There was a bug in the previous version where if you were sneaking, you could still place a block in the same space that you were in, and that made you fall off. That is no longer the case. If you were attacking or mining with an enchanted book, you would get the enchantment off of that book. That is no longer the case. And when you were loading into a world, mobs could previously target you before you were actually even there, and that is fixed in this version. A couple of fixes for flying with Elytra. When you're flying and press the A button on a controller, that used to cancel the flight, and it won't anymore. And you would also cease climbing stairs and slabs while flying, and that is no longer the case either. Doors, wooden buttons, ladders, and fishing rods are now available as fuel for a furnace. And if you were picking up arrows when you already had arrows in your offhand slots, they will go in a separate stack in your inventory, and that is fixed so they add to your stack in your offhand slot now. If you threw an ender pearl onto a minecart or a boat, that could destroy the minecart or boat. That is fixed in this version. One redstone fix in this version: shulker boxes now only give a full redstone signal when they are filled with 27 full item stacks. And then a fix for taking damage. If you're taking damage when you have a crafting or container screen up on your screen, then that screen will close if you're taking damage from another player or from a mob. Couple of fixes to blocks in this version. Skulls can now be placed on the ground when there is a layer of snow already there, and leaves that have snow over them will no longer appear black. If you dropped a heavy block, that falling block, onto a leaf block, that would break, and that is fixed in this version. You can now also use shears to cut cobweb and get that to drop as an item. Two achievements are fixed in this version. That is the Sniper Duel and Inception achievements. They were not unlockable and they are fixed on all platforms in this version. Some fixes to the mobs in the game. Sheep would emit 2 sounds when they were dying. That is fixed in this version. Guardians weren't spawning in ocean monuments. That's also fixed. And iron golems would not cause enough knockback effects to a player or mob they attacked. Endermen now take damage if they stand in a filled cauldron. And speaking of Endermen, if an Enderman or a spider gets hit with an invisibility potion, then now you can still see their eyes slightly. Another mob-related change is that if you have a mob spawn egg, you can now use any type of spawn egg on water. A fix for realms in this version: there's now a button that has been added to join a realm using an invite code that is found on the Friends tab for platforms where you can't click on realms invite links. There are also some technical changes to map-making stuff, commands, and entities in this version. If you replace an item by a command, that will now instantly be visible in your inventory. And if you press tab to complete a parameter of a command, then the choices are now sorted correctly. Another change to commands is that game rules are now case insensitive if you type them into a command, so putting in a character in caps is no longer a problem. And finally, if you add a damage sensor component to an entity, then that no longer prevents using /kill on that entity. There's also a bunch of exploits fixed in this version. There was an exploit that allowed a child account to join a server even when the multiplayer permissions were set to disabled. And then there are a couple of fixes for exploits where you could duplicate different things. You could duplicate rails or shulker boxes in earlier versions. Finally, there are a number of fixes for stability and performance. On iOS, the render distance is no longer limited to 6 chunks if you have a higher memory device. There's also a bunch of fixes for crashes, a whole load of fixes for split screen functionality on the Xbox One, and a number of rendering bug fixes. If you want this version, then check in your App Store. It should be there right at this moment to update. If it isn't, then come back later and check again. It might take a little bit of time for this to appear. And that is all for this time. My name is Sliced Lime. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.